Today I'm going to make a video of coloring a linoleum block print that I printed using oil-based ink. So I've just soaked it in water. You can see the paper is very floppy. It's also got a sheen on it. And the reason I do that is because when I'm just starting out one of these prints, I like it to be sort of softer, the bottom layer. Instead of using regular watercolors, I'm using gouache, which is a semi-opaque watercolor, but it can be thinned down so it's as thin as watercolor, almost as thin as watercolor. But it has wonderful qualities, and one of them is that if you paint with it, it does leave a little bit of a residue on top of the black ink, but then I can go back in and wet the entire paper again and do wet on wet effects as often as I want to. So one of the things I'm going to do is just sort of put down a first layer of yellow-green, because I like to start with the lights, and then later on I can layer over that with different shades of green, or just to differentiate between all these various shades of green. One of the great things about printing with oil-based ink is you notice that the watercolor stays where you put it. It's not running all over the paper because it's keeping within the oil-based black lines. They act as a little fence. A little more yellow. I carved this print some time ago. I love it because it reminds me of spring in California, where by this time of year, mid-February, wild irises are definitely blooming, and you can go out in the woods and see them. I think I'm happy with the amount of pale yellow. I'm going to add in a little bit of turquoise. So now I have a spring green. My paper's still nice and damp, but things aren't running all over the place. My goal right now is just to get covered up or filled in or whatever, anything that is not going to be purple or pink or yellow for the irises. But I fully intend to come back and add more color. So if it seems a little pale, which it does to me, it is on purpose. But it's kind of fun. It's just like coloring in a coloring book, except with paint. So if you ever enjoyed that as a kid, you'll like doing this. Okay, there might be more to do, but Now I'm going to switch over to doing some really nice pale purpley blues. Just like with the greens, I always start out lighter. I can keep making these more vivid, but it's hard to make them lighter. I'll mix in a bit more magenta for this one just to change the feel a little bit. Okay, now especially near the base of the petals, it's nice to add even more deep color. Because where everything comes together, not as much light seeps through. But if you leave the tips of your petals lighter like that, it'll look like light shining through them. And if you make them deeper near the base, where they all come together, it just makes them look a little bit more like real flowers. Go inside where all those curls are and leave the area curled over lighter. You can see how easy it is to add more color while your paper's still damp like this. Just soaks right in. And one of the really pretty things about irises is they have some yellow near their center. So I'm going to get a nice little pure yellow. Paint right there. And right there. And this little buttercup, so it too can be yellow. And these little buttercup buds can be made yellower. I don't see any yellow on this one. These teeny little pink things can have a yellow center. This can have a little touch in the middle. Strawberry blossom. Okay, now I'm going to let the irises dry a little bit and go back to working on the leaves. And I'm going to pull in a few more dark colors. I love this sort of blue greens as well. So usually if I start a leaf somewhere, I like to pull the color trace the leaf and pull the color all the way down to where the leaf started. Maybe here. And let's see, that's a leaf, so I'll choose that one. I want these little strawberry leaves to stand out, so I'm going to surround them with darker green. So that's the lit side of the leaf, so I'll make the shadow side of the leaf darker down here. And this one's a good one to darken. And I try to get a sense of the balance of the piece. I need some darker colors over here to outline these little stems. Go in there, there, there. Okay, so maybe leave that one light, color this one dark. And it goes up here and around that little bud. Oh, I realized that's supposed to be an iris bud right in there, and I didn't even see that. Yeah, that looks good. Then these skinnier little petals on an iris, they can be really vividly colored. So I'm going to load up my brush with a pretty intense purple. Paper's dried, so it's easier to paint small details without having them run into each other. Okay, now I think I'll just keep adding more rich greens. Different kinds of greens. That's more of a real green. These dark colors look really nice behind the white blossoms. I think I'll tint those pink, but not just yet. So even a painted print needn't be all pale colors. You can put plenty of rich colors in it, and the black will always hold its own. Yeah, it's starting to look good. So you think probably that I'm covering up all the nice pale greens with darker greens, but all the yellows underneath still show through and inform whatever goes on top. I'll add the very slightest pink. Just wet these a little bit again first before I do. Wash out some of that green. You can see the paint doesn't move because it's gouache. Very slight pink. It just drops in there and same with a little bit around this strawberry. And then I'm going to make these buds. bright yellowy green. Oh, and I think I'll add some contouring to these strawberry leaves. Remember I said if leaves tend to get lighter at the edges, at the ends, and darker near their stems. So I just put some clean water on there and added some darker green. And it kind of runs down near towards the ends of the leaves. And these leaves all twist and turn, so it's good to give them a little bit of contouring. That would be in shadow. Probably that would be in a bit more shadow. So if things start to poke out at you, you can push them back just by using color. I'm going to add a teeny bit of orange just there. And a little bit of pure magenta to just warm up this particular one up here. And then usually I like to paint this little border around the edge with sort of a pink, purple, pinky magenta color too. So this border was carved, obviously. Double line keeps the paint in really nicely. Okay, I'm pretty happy. Maybe a little bit more blue. Okay, so that's how I would color a hand-printed linoleum block. Printed with oil-based ink, allowed to dry for 24 hours at least, and then soaked in water and colored with watercolors. You can make as many of these as you want. They'll all be slightly different. They're more like a print painting rather than a pure print, but they're awfully nice and they don't take very long to do. And I plan to make reproductions of this one and make it into cards. Thanks. Bye.